Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be riding on the S45, a convenient but at the same time very historic railway line that connects the outer districts of my home city Vienna. Together we're going to take a deep dive into the fascinating history of this railway line and how it was transformed from an abandoned and derelict railway into a successful commuter line that so many people in my city rely upon every single day. So I'm currently at Wien-Hütteldorf, where I'm going to be starting my trip along the S45 today.
S45 von Handelskai fährt ein. Dieser Zug fährt als S45 nach Handelskai.
I'm really lucky because I just got one of these really old class 4020 train units for my journey today. These trains have been used on the line since the 1980s and, well, it always makes me happy when I see one of these trains on the S45.
Herzlich willkommen in der S-Bahn nach Handelskai, S-Bahn U6.
With the sound of the train motor in my ear and soft winds blowing in through the window, I set off on my journey on the S45, a line I have travelled along many a time before. The line runs from Wien-Hütteldorf to Wien-Handelskai, forming an orbital link around the western half of the city. Run by the Austrian Federal Railways ÖBB, it is part of Vienna's suburban railway network, known as the Vienna S-Bahn. While the S45 itself has only been in operation since 1987, the line on which it runs, known as the Forortelinie, has existed long before that. The Forortelinie was originally opened in 1898 as part of Vienna Stadtbahn, a suburban railway system built in the late 19th century. At the time, Vienna's administrative borders had just been expanded to incorporate a number of outlying villages, meaning that the new neighbourhoods needed to be connected to the railway. The stations and other infrastructural elements along the Forortelinie were designed by the famous architect and city planner Otto Wagner. Otto Wagner is famous for his Jugendstil buildings, which you find in many corners of Vienna until today, forming an integral part of the city's cultural heritage. Besides being used for passenger services, the Forortelinie was also highly frequented by freight trains, which served important businesses in the local area, such as the coffee retailing factory Julius Meinl or the confectionery factory Manner. As passenger numbers on the line were only moderate, passenger services were withdrawn on the Forortelinie in 1932. While the line was still occasionally used for freight trains, the stations and the rest of the infrastructure started to decay and fall into disrepair in the following decades. But as we know, this is not the end of the story. Later in the video, we will find out how the line was revived and brought back to life again as the S45 several years on. After departing from Wien-Hütteldorf, the S45 follows along the main Western Railway line to Wien-Penzing. On this section, trains can reach speeds of up to 100 km per hour. This is definitely the fastest speed you will see on the S45, as on the remaining sections, trains travel at a rather leisurely pace of around 60 to 70 km per hour. After Wien-Penzing, the S45 branches off from the main western line with a sharp left curve before disappearing below the ground, where the train soon arrives at the next station, Wien-Breitensee. Directly after Wien-Breitensee, the train enters into a roughly 800-metre long tunnel. Coming out at the other end, you soon arrive at Wien-Otterkring. This is one of the original Otto Wagner style stations that has mostly remained in its original state since the era of the Vienna Stadtbahn. At Otterkring, the train usually gets quite a bit busier, as many passengers join from the U3 underground line, which has its western terminus station directly adjacent to the S45. Thereafter, the line runs above ground level, crossing over some bridges and viaduct arches, which, like the stations, were also designed by Otto Wagner. At the next station, Hernals, I'm going to get off the train and show you around a little bit. Like Otterkring, Hernals is one of the stations that is still the original station building designed by Otto Wagner. The two platforms have a lot of architectural elements that Otto Wagner is famous for. This includes the tiled floor pattern, the wooden doors with the ornate lettering above them, the sloped platform roofs with globe-shaped lamps hanging from them, as well as the decorative columns, held in a light Reseda green tone, or as many Viennese people would call it, Otto Wagner green. While many Viennese people refer to this colour as Otto Wagner green, did you know that this green tone actually has nothing to do with Otto Wagner? When the stations along the Forortelinie were renovated in 2015, experts examined the paint layers on the railings and columns. While they were doing so, they made a shocking discovery. At the time of the creation of the stations, it appears that the first initial paint coating on the railings and the columns was held in a light beige colour. The bright green paint, on the other hand, appears only to have been applied after the Second World War. This means that for a long time people associated this colour with Otto Wagner, but in reality this colour was only added to the station long after his time. Behind platform 1, you will find a disused track that is part of the freight sidings located south of the station. These freight sidings were once used to serve the famous coffee retailing factory Julius Meinl, but are no longer in use today. Now, one thing you have to pay attention to when getting off at Hernals railway station are these very heavy doors you have to go through to get down into the station hall. While they might look very nice architecturally, they're not always very practical. The doors do not open automatically, so you always have to hold it open to the person walking behind you. And if you're not paying attention, well, then one of the doors might slam into your face. Once you have successfully managed to pass through the heavy doors, you walk down a wide staircase with shallow steps, which has original wooden banisters following along the side. Downstairs, you will find a large spacious hall with an arc-shaped roof and a black and white tiled floor. On one side of the hall, there is a medal sitting on a large stone. This medal comes from the organisation Europa Nostra, an international federation that supports the protection of cultural and natural heritage. ÖBB were awarded with this medal for the restoration of the Forortelinie in 1992, which is why this medal is showcased in the station hall at Hernals ever since. The station itself is located in Vienna's 17th district, which is called Hernals, hence how the station gets its name. The S45 crosses over Hernals' main road, called Hernalser Hauptstraße, using a large bridge, which has been restored in the original Otto Wagner design. Now you've seen what a typical station on the Forortelinie looks like. But as I told you earlier, there was a time when all the stations along the Forortelinie were in total decay. So how did it come about that this decaying railway line was transformed into the modern and convenient S45 service as we know it today? After the 1950s, the Forortelinie was only occasionally served by freight trains, and the infrastructure was continuously being neglected. Some of the stations, like Unterdöbling, were either completely demolished, while others, like Otterkring or Hernals, started to decay over time, with nature taking over some of the platforms. At the time, many local people used to refer to the Forortelinie as Vienna's ghost line. This state of neglect continued on for about 20 years, until at the end of the 1970s, the Austrian government announced a large subsidy program called the Nahverkehrsmilliarde to support public transport projects across the country. In 1979, it was announced that the Forortelinie would reopen again and be integrated into the Vienna S-Bahn network. In the following years, the line was completely modernised and electrified with overhead wires. Some of the stations had to be totally rebuilt, while others were still existing but had to be thoroughly refurbished to be restored into their original state. After many years of work, the Forortelinie was officially reopened for passenger services in May 1987.
Vorortelinie in Wien wurde heute nach 55 Jahren wieder eröffnet. Die desolaten Otto Wagner Bahnhöfe wurden mit hohem finanziellen Aufwand restauriert.
On the first day of operation, there was a grand opening event visited by a vast number of people. Helmut Zug, the mayor of Vienna at that time, held a speech at Wien Heiligenstadt where he emphasized the importance of the Vorortelinie as part of Vienna's public transport system. The reopening event was filled with a vibrant and festive atmosphere, and everyone was very excited to witness the first regular train services running on the Forortelinie again after more than 50 years. The greatest highlight on the opening day was the special steam train with historic carriages. These were original rolling stock from the era of the Vienna Stadtbahn. The steam train ran parallel to one of the Class 4020 train units, which were considered the modern S-Bahn trains at the time. This offered some ideal photo opportunities for railway enthusiasts from wide and far who wanted to capture some memories of this special reopening day. In the first years after operation started, passenger numbers were only moderate. However, this changed later on, as the service was continuously improved. Initially only running as far as Wien Heiligenstadt, the S45 was extended to Wien Handelskai in 1996 to connect to the newly constructed underground line U6. In 1998, Vienna's U3 underground line was extended to Otterkring. With these new connections to other important public transport lines, passenger numbers started to grow. By 2006, 13,000 passengers were using the line every day. Due to increasing demand, the existing 15-minute frequency was then enhanced to a 10-minute frequency during peak hours. Within only 5 years, passenger numbers more than doubled to nearly 30,000 passengers per day. Building upon this success, the 10-minute frequency was gradually enhanced to cover the entire day. In my opinion, the S45 is a perfect example to demonstrate that when you gradually improve the service on a railway line, the passengers will eventually come. It is a true success story that can definitely be seen as an inspiration for other cities who might also be considering the reactivation of disused railway lines. Crossing the large bridge over Hernals Hauptstraße, we continue our journey along the remaining part of the S45, this time in one of the more modern train units known as the Talent 1. The next station on the line is Wien-Gersthof, which, similar to Hernals and Otterkring, has kept its old Otto Wagner style building since the time of the Vienna Stadtbahn. After Gersthof, the S45 proceeds through two tunnels that run under the Türkenschanzpark, with a short section between the two tunnels that is in the middle of the park. The next station is Kottenbachstraße, which lies below ground level. Kottenbachstraße and the following station Oberdöbling were reconstructed as part of the reopening of the line in the 1980s. While these stations are not original Otto Wagner designs, certain architectural elements were incorporated to create a certain amount of uniformity to the other already existing stations. After Oberdöbling, the line continues through Vienna's 19th district below ground level. Now in a minute, when we look out the window, we're going to see where the old station Wien Unterdöbling used to be. This station used to exist in the time of the Vienna Stadtbahn, but was never reopened thereafter. After crossing under Döblinger Hauptstraße, the railway line has a widened section which indicates where the former station used to be located. Today, all you see are concrete walls with lots of graffiti tags on them. I'm sure many people do not even know that this once used to be a railway station. After crossing over the Franz-Josefs-Bahn, the train arrives at Wien Heiligenstadt, where you can interchange into the underground line U4. After Heiligenstadt, the train crosses over Vienna's Danube Canal on a short single-track section, before joining a railway line called the Donau-Uferbahn. The train then continues along this line, running adjacent to the River Danube all the way to the final stop at Wien Handelskai. So we've now made it to Handelskai, the other terminus of the S45. Compared to other stations on the S45, the architecture of Handelskai is more functional, and the high amount of traffic next to the platform can sometimes make it not the most pleasant place to wait at. However, there is one thing that does make this station rather unique. When you listen very carefully, you can hear some classical music playing. It's coming from the speakers. While Handelskai is the last stop for the S45, the tracks continue much further along the River Danube, but they are currently only used by freight trains. However, this will probably change at some point in the future. In the past, there have often been plans to extend the S45 to create a full ring line around Vienna, making use of existing freight lines. This project is often referred to as the Vienna S-Bahn ring. In my next video, I'm going to talk about this long discussed public transport project, which parts are likely to become reality, and what my personal opinion is about Vienna's plans to build a Vienna S-Bahn ring. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on another exciting video.